class. Do
Well,
you see them in mostly for writing classes or applicable?
in my case, it was mainly in writing classes, but I also, in the contemplative practice seminar, presented some of these ideas just as initiatory exercises. I guess that same principle of noticing mind space, mind currents, as they play together. There's a meaning there to see what arises and what might develop on the basis of what arises. So if you stay with something, if your attention stays with something, it seems that normally, once arisen, it develops for a while. Sometimes it could develop into an entire novel, for instance. But at least to spend 5 or 10 minutes tracking the kind of developmental feeling of something that isn't being constructed consciously, but is kind of constructing its own development as it goes, is often surprising and interesting. And even insightful, offering insight at times.
Sounds like a way to get in touch with a natural creativity
Yes,
for people.
yes, I would say that's a good way of putting it.
Cool. Makes me want to go home and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all these things can become simple daily practices. They don't have to become grandiose projects. You know, it's something you could dedicate 5 or 10 minutes to a day. You know, if you could stay with that, and things would move from there. They do. They develop.
Cool. Sounds like it could also be great if you had like writer's block, if you were trying to write a lot and you were stuck, and then you just go back to these elemental sounds.
That's a very good point, and I think it's true, and it could be very helpful, because I think the condition of writer's block is often a sort of self-imposed one where you've frozen up because you're afraid that you might not have anything left to say. But if you can get this elemental about it, that whole complex stage of the process where I'm having trouble can be seen through. You can go back before that even comes up and just do it.
Cool. Yeah. So, is there anything about the history of this or these practices or that you wanted to speak to?
Well, I think in speaking of the emphasis on attention to opening to space through practices like meditation or space awareness, and then with that openness to space, noticing just what happens as simply as possible. That's an allusion to the history of Naropa in its initial bringing together of contemplative, meditative practices typically from Asia into the Western world at the time that was happening, and also seeing the educational value of bringing those two worlds together, say in school or academia, where normally the conceptual side is the one that's focused upon and encouraged and measured, but that if that side is developed alongside this attention to space and what arises moment to moment, without necessarily feeling compelled to know what it means or translate it into something conceptual, then the idea of how the world arises continuously, both meaning and unpredictable play, or knownness and unknownness at the same time, becomes felt. And I think that's in my experience, a very valuable learning experience.
A kind of unique learning experience.
Yeah. Though I think it's also the way we always learn too. I don't think it's a new way of learning. It's just that we're not habituated or used to looking into how that play works. That natural play between what's recognized and named and what's not yet recognized and not yet named, but still experienced, how those two realms of experience continuously work together and play together. Also to know how fluid language really is, and to escape from the illusion that one word means one thing. So we're negotiating this way all the time. As words change, new concepts and terms arise. They sound like old ones. They may mean the same word, but it's not the same meaning any longer. So just need to understand sort of in a personal way how fluid language is, and how important it is to have consensual, conventional meanings in order to you know, convey ideas. Both things are important, but can't get too hung up on the necessity that this word means this thing as I mean it, because somebody else is going to be reading it with a slightly different angle on that word or term or history of language. So I think it's a good thing to think of language as something that continuously refreshes itself and needs to be refreshed, but also needs you to know where it's been.
There's a history there.
Yeah, there's a long and deep history in terms of our use of words and terms that we don't want to get hung up on, but we can't forget either in being skilled, I think, with language. And again, just enjoying this natural ability we have and affinity we have towards language.
Yeah, it's a really amazing natural ability that we all have.
Yeah, yeah, one of the most amazing, I think. I'm sure Mark will believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
I remember getting in an argument with someone about, because I said humans have language and animals don't, and then they were like, "Oh, what about the dolphins?" And
Oh yeah.
so
No,
maybe
everything's
maybe
language. I think birds are that's language, of course, but there are degrees and complexity in terms of how it's in different species and what it's conveying and how much it seems to be able to convey.
yeah.
But I certainly, when I hear birds um, caw or shriek or sing melodiously, I don't know how that could not be language.
Yeah, something's being communicated.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much.
Great. I think that's